Welcome.
All right, thank you very much. I think there will be significant tie-in between my presentation and Bud Wright's remarks.
Okay.
I think the tie-in will be unmistakable. What I want to talk to you about is a 10-year plan that we developed while I was still employed by the North Carolina Department of Transportation for the interstate system, the highest level system in the state. I will discuss some of the issues that led to the creation of the plan. Like many plans, they come about in response to some issue or problem or conflict. This one is no different. Then I'll talk a little bit about the approach, talk about the inclusion of bridges, and then really focus on some of the benefits that North Carolina DOT has enjoyed as a result of implementing the plan, and a few closing conclusions. It's a map of North Carolina, and it shows only the interstates, which are the pale blue, and that red is a interstate under construction, and the gold are the primary highways, the second order tier. But I want to mention that in North Carolina, the state owns all of the county roads as well. There is no county road system. It's all state-owned and state-maintained. So it is a huge system of 80,000 plus centerline miles. So a very large system. Includes on the state system 8,700 bridges, 10 ferry routes, 59 general aviation airports. It's a big system, lots of moving parts. The state is divided into 14 divisions. Most states in the U.S. call them districts. North Carolina has always called them divisions. 11 of those divisions have interstate highway miles, 3 do not. And so this plan really is only addressed toward those 11 divisions. So what were the issues that led to the development of the plan? Well, previously, prior to the plan, preservation, rehab, and reconstruction were all funded under the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, a mandatory 5-year program. North Carolina typically operated with a 7-year program, of which 5 years was firm, and the 2 outlying years were more flexible. But the plan favored capital expansion. And that was very difficult from the point of view of preservation and maintenance. When a road really needed rehab, putting it in a 5-year waiting period did not help getting that repair work done in a timely fashion. Maintenance and preservation were funded out of very limited local budgets, what the local division funds were. And the real problem was the cost of traffic control for these interstate highways would eat up the available resources and would result in the work being deferred. Then we found, by looking at the pattern of work that was being done on the interstates, that once an interstate project came up for rehab in the TIP, in other words, when it hit that 5-year or 3 years to construction, the local division essentially stopped doing maintenance and preservation, thinking they will save their maintenance and preservation funds for other needs because they have this project that's coming just a few years out. The result of that, for anybody who is aware of the way pavements deteriorate, if you have a project that's scheduled for rehab in 3 years, the last 2 or 3 years prior to that rehab, you can see a significant increase in deterioration, and The result of that was significant cost overruns, and the particulars patching over undercut and broken slab replacements were the big items. These are high dollar construction items. That led to adverse impacts on the TIP funding plan. You know, they want to be able to plan exactly how much a project will cost, and I used to tell them that rehab was not for weenies, but that did not give them a reassuring feeling. They really wanted to know that the scope was well controlled. In addition, the divisions were competing for very limited TIP funding. Okay, it was a fixed pot of money, and that meant when a division got a project, they tended to try to push everything they could into that project because they knew they might not get another project for a while. That led to scope creep. Just, again, the cost control issue was huge. For the work that the divisions did with their local funds, those limited local funds, they tended to treat only the driving lanes, and as a result, the shoulder conditions tended to deteriorate, sometimes to poor condition. Then, keeping in mind what I described about the system, that the state owned and maintained local roads, regional roads, and state and interstate roads, while the interstates carried the bulk of the traffic, including commuter traffic in the urban areas, it was the local roads that would get all of the calls to the regional, to the division office. And so they were getting a disproportionate attention paid to local roads. North Carolina has some of the best local roads you'll find anywhere in the U.S. And it's partly the result of this. The locals care about the road in front of their house, their school, their church. And I don't know what you do about that. I understand, but it does make it hard to manage a network. That gets us to this plan. Clearly, there were issues that were bigger than one division or two divisions. It was the whole state. Chief Engineer Terry Gibson actually took the lead here. He called me into his office one day and said, I'm going to set aside $100 million per year for the interstates. But before I do that, you have to develop a 10-year plan to preserve, maintain, rehab, and to a limited extent, reconstruct interstate highways. So it was a big undertaking to take on this 10-year plan. One of the constraints was there were a number of projects already in the TIP, in the Transportation Improvement Program. We decided those would stay where they were. We weren't going to try and pull those out and pull them into the plan. So the pavement management system was a critical tool in order to do this. We used it in a number of different ways. Of course, one of the things you could tell from the pavement management system was when the last treatment was applied. We also used our deterioration curves to determine how long treatments were likely to last for different treatment categories, and I've given an example up there. Our hot mix asphalt lasted on average statewide 12.4 years and 11 years in the mountain areas to the west. So I used those numbers. Created similar numbers for microsurfacing and some other common treatments. The time to needed treatment was calculated for each segment, and then a program was developed. The real the real difficulty is combining sections from your pavement management section into workable blocks for actually having projects. But you can do it. It does take a lot of attention to detail. One of the things that we had not done much, and you'll see another slide on this, North Carolina had not done much diamond grinding on our jointed concrete. I set that based at 15 years, just based on my best guess of when the ride quality tended to degrade. But we put in, early in the plan, some segments that had ride quality issues. And then I used the distress data from our automated distress to estimate patching quantities. Okay, I have some examples here to kind of show you the thinking that went into the plan. There was a segment of Interstate that was treated 6 years ago with milling and resurfacing with hot mixed asphalt. Based on its location, that asphalt surface should have a life of 12 years. And just so you know, the reason in North Carolina why that life is 12 years is from oxidation drying. It's a hot, humid climate. So 12 years, we get shrinkage cracking. And so the result of that was in year 6 of the 10-year plan, that segment was in there scheduled for milling and resurfacing. Because the divisions got access to the full 10-year plan, that division that owned that pavement that was 6 years old could see that when that time to treatment came up, they were already scheduled to have that treatment. That reduced a lot of the internal competition for the limited funds. We got fewer and fewer requests for immediate treatments, and that really helps control budget and scope. The bridges got included after I had developed the whole 10-year plan. Nevertheless, bridges, the case was made to include bridges, and by this we mean the bridges that were in the pavement segments that were going to be treated. They would be evaluated to see if they needed a surface seal, if they needed to have guardrail adjustments and other bridge treatments, patching and so forth. So including the bridge preservation funding reduced the pavement funding to $85 million per year, but it did allow for some duplicate use of traffic control in treating the bridges and the pavements. So now I want to just really focus on the benefits. One of the benefits is the reduced uncertainty about funding led to much more stability in project scope. There was an increased willingness to maintain the interstates because they knew if they maintained them, there would be the funding for the preservation, the rehabs, and so forth. I want to talk about this one particular corridor. This is I-40, essentially from the capital city. It's a little outside of the capital, but all the way to the coast. And it had open graded friction course on it, and that friction course had raveled over time. The pavement structure also needed strengthening. We found it to be deficient using falling weight deflectometer. We used the corridor approach to improve the pavement, added thickness, added an additional layer of asphalt, and then placed the open graded friction course to reduce splash and spray. This is a reach the beach route. I'm sure any of you who manage roads have tourist destination routes that you have to manage, and this one is certainly one of ours. Another example, there were 4 sections of I-85, which is the interstate that goes out of Durham, North Carolina, up to Virginia. We had done an unbonded concrete overlay on those sections. They were the first unbonded concrete overlay sections done in North Carolina. And one of the results is that there was a lot of roughness in the pavement as a result of just some of the construction uncertainties. As we went from the first project through the fourth one, it improved, but we wanted to give the citizens a really good ride throughout the whole corridor. So that was one of the first-year diamond grinding projects. And this just shows you the improvement. It's in inches per mile. My metric conversions are terrible, but the blue was the before diamond grinding and the orange is the after diamond grinding, and I think it goes without a knowledge of the units to know that we got significant improvement. The few spikes were from some skewed bridge approaches. So if you're wondering what those couple of spikes were, that's what they were, and there was really nothing we could do about that. This demonstrates the impact of the 10-year plan on the diamond grinding activities in the state. Preceding 2013 and into 2013, quantity 0, and then increasing dramatically as the concrete sections are ground improved, and then we'll enter it back into the system with a 15-year timeline. What were some of the benefits for lots of people? Well, the contractors benefited. The contractors were some of the main supporters of this plan. They loved knowing what type of work would be let and when. It was helpful to them in figuring out their business plans. The increased use of diamond grinding improved ride quality around the state. We now have a regular program of joint repair and joint resealing, and shoulders are treated and in some cases reconstructed. North Carolina did some can't think of the word for it, the concrete that you place with the paver for some of those shoulder repairs, some full depth reclamation for shoulder repairs, really substantially improved the shoulders. Scheduling bridge treatments with pavement projects allowed the use of some of the same traffic control, not for everything, but in some cases that worked out and was very beneficial, reduced user costs and delays. And I, of course, being a pavement management person, the last one is my favorite. Treatments are based on need and condition, and timing is based on treatment life, not on a funding formula. So that really gets us away from that political decision-making and into something that's really data-driven, which is asset management. So the conclusion is we've developed a rational 10-year plan for preservation and rehab of North Carolina's interstate system. The total dollar figure was based on pavement management system analysis, as was the treatment surface life. And there were many benefits for the public, the contractors, and for agency personnel. We improved ride quality statewide. That was not a huge issue, but where it was an issue, it was definitely needing attention. We improved splash and spray using open graded friction course. Just a note here, we don't use open graded friction course statewide. In the western mountains, they're too shady and too cold, and we've had ice accumulation in the open graded friction course. But on the beach areas. They are very, very successful. We have a regular preservation program now for the interstates, including joint sealing, crack sealing, joint repair, and asphalt repairs. And the benefits will continue as long, this is the great, the DOT and me. Benefits will continue as long as funding remains stable. I'm very hopeful. Thank you for your attention, and I understand we're going to save questions for later. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you, Judith. Now it's time for Karim.